I wasn't invited to my family's gala, but I showed up anyway, wearing the future on my wrist and every reason they gave me to stay away etched in my spine. If you've ever stood outside a room built by your own blood, unwanted, unwelcomed, but walked in anyway just to prove you're still breathing, stay with me. This night unraveled more than I ever thought I'd survive. Because this story didn't begin with applause. It began with silence, and a father's sideways glance that cut sharper than any word. I'm Elyse Varnell. I'm 32. I design diagnostic biotech, stuff that could change lives if someone would just let it live. My family runs Varnell Tech, and I used to think that meant I belonged somewhere. Before I tell you how I turned one humiliating moment into the spark that exposed their lies, subscribe. One small click that means the world to storytellers like me trying to bring you even better stories. But back then, I wasn't anyone they cared to remember. I was the girl at the edge of the ballroom, just a shadow in satin, holding a prototype nobody asked to see. The chandelier light fractured across the marble floor as I stepped inside. Every heel click echoed louder than my heartbeat. Laughter spilled across the room like champagne, golden and giddy, until it didn't. Until someone saw me. My father's voice cut through the air like a whip. "Why is she here?" Chatter died instantly. Eyes flicked toward me, then away. My fingers curled around the slim device in my palm. Half bracelet, half miracle, months of sleepless nights packed into polished steel and microcode. I saw Gideon across the room, perfectly tailored, glass in hand, smirking like this was theater and I was the act that didn't belong on stage. His voice didn't rise, but it slithered through the crowd all the same. "She's not on the guest list." My throat tightened, but I smiled anyway, the kind of smile that's not joy, but armor. I walked further in, past Victor's cold stare, past the waiters who didn't offer me champagne, past the table with my name missing from every place card, and then the CEO of Biotrelix stood, tall, silver-haired, voice smooth as velvet dipped in ice. He looked at me, paused, then nodded once. "Welcome, Inventor Elyse." The silence shattered. Chairs shifted. Cameras clicked. Somewhere behind me, my mother gasped. I didn't turn around. Inside, my pulse was hammering, but I kept my chin high, the prototype cradled in my hand like a secret I wasn't supposed to have survived. Victor stepped forward, smile taut. "This is unexpected," he said, eyes scanning the crowd as if searching for an exit. I said nothing. I didn't need to. The weight of the room had already shifted. And then I heard it, so quiet, so sharp, I wasn't sure anyone else caught it. "She doesn't belong here." It wasn't shouted. It was hissed, from Victor to no one in particular, like a curse slipping from habit. I froze, not outwardly, not where they could see, but inside, something twisted, something snapped into place. I had spent a lifetime trying to prove I was part of this family, but in that moment, I stopped needing proof, because I wasn't here to belong. I was here to be seen. The gala glittered on without me. Even as the CEO's voice rang out, "Inventor Elyse," even as heads turned and whispers chased each other like smoke around the ballroom, my father's glare burned hotter than any spotlight. I'd barely made it to the exit hall when a hand caught my arm, firm, familiar, unwelcome. Victor. "We need to talk, now." He didn't wait for agreement, just steered me through the staff corridor like I was smuggling shame down the back hallway. The sounds of laughter and crystal faded behind the thick wood door. Cold air bit at my arms. The conference room smelled of eucalyptus cleaner and expensive ink. Victor stood by the long table like it was a throne. Gideon leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his tie slightly loosened, staged indifference. I stood. I didn't sit. They didn't offer. Victor slid a folder across the table. "Do you even understand what you're risking?" My hand hovered over the folder but didn't touch it. "Risking what? Existing. You blindsided us. You had no right." "I had every right," I cut in. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "You're just angry the room saw me before you could hide me." Gideon chuckled, low, mocking. Victor didn't blink. "That device isn't ready. If Biotrelix takes it seriously, it'll reflect on this family, on this company." "This company has ignored that device for 2 years," I shot back. "You called it what? Child's play? Victor didn't deny it. He just pressed his lips into a thin, bloodless line. His silence roared louder than his voice ever could. I finally opened the folder. Inside, printed slides of my presentation, photos of my prototype, patent filing drafts, not mine, marked with Gideon's name. I blinked, heart hiccuping in my chest. You filed under him? Victor stepped closer. He has the market experience, the leadership presence. You isolate, you build things, Elyse, but you don't lead. The air turned iron cold. My fingers trembled, but I didn't let the folder fall. Gideon straightened his tie. Dad's just trying to salvage what's left of your idea before you ruin it with another tantrum. I laughed, dry and cracked. You mean before I ruined your narrative? Every breath I took scraped something raw inside me. I looked from Victor to Gideon, flesh and blood and betrayal wrapped in Armani, and still, I searched their faces for something. Recognition? Regret? There was none. I pushed the folder back. You don't get to file my work. I built that device from scratch. On our equipment, Victor interrupted. On company time. Don't play victim, Elyse. My voice dropped. You've been trying to erase me for years, but this time, I came back with evidence. Gideon laughed louder. You always were dramatic. I didn't respond. I just turned and walked out. I made it to my car before my hands started to shake for real. The prototype sat in my purse, warm against my side like a pulse. Rain had started, a thin mist whispering on the windshield. As I gripped the wheel, I remembered a boardroom 2 years ago. Bright lights, frosted glass. My voice trembling as I pitched the cancer detection device to the full Varnell panel. Victor hadn't even let me finish. He'd slammed his hand on the table. This isn't marketable. It's theoretical nonsense. Gideon had smiled. We'll focus on my app. Real ROI, real data. And just like that, the air left the room, and me. That was the day I stopped calling myself a Varnell in public. Back in the present, I drove toward my lab in silence. Every traffic light blinked green like the world was mocking me. Move forward, move forward, move forward. Inside the lab, I flipped on the lights, the hum of machines, the smell of solder and sanitizer, my sanctuary. I collapsed into my chair, dropped the prototype on the workbench, and stared at the blinking diagnostics. Stable, functional, proven, yet still unwanted. I reached for my mug, empty. My fingers wrapped around it anyway, held it like a memory. The silence buzzed louder than the machines. I opened my email. Junk. Spam. One subject line caught my eye. Stolen? From someone named Jared I didn't know. Inside, a rumor thread from a startup forum. Is Varnell Tech stealing from internal talent? No names, no proof. But the whispers were out there, and they all sounded like me. The door creaked open. My head snapped up. Gideon, casual, calm, carrying 2 coffees like nothing had happened. Thought you'd be here, he said. Brought peace offering. He set one down in front of me. I didn't touch it. I'm not here to fight, he said, voice too soft. Dad's just, he doesn't see long shots. This isn't a long shot, I snapped. It's functional, tested, it works. His gaze dropped, then lifted again. Just saying, maybe don't go nuclear. Play it smart. You've still got Mom. I blinked. Mom? His eyes flickered. A pause. Then, she asked about you. Said she misses your voice in the house. Something inside me twisted. Not soft, sharp. Because that wasn't the truth. Not completely. Before I could reply, he set a small box on my desk. Found this in the attic. Yours, right? I opened it after he left. Inside, a faded photo of me, age 12, in my old basement lab, and a handwritten journal entry, unmistakably my mother's. Elyse built her first working sensor today. She calls it heartbeat glass. I've never seen her this alive. My chest ached. Why had she never told me she kept this? Why had this been hidden? I stared at the box, questions multiplying like static in my brain. But one thing was clear. They'd tried to bury me, but someone, had left a breadcrumb, and I was going to follow it. The photo sat on my desk like a question. My mother's handwriting curled in faded ink, still breathing life into a version of me I barely remembered. Heartbeat glass. I could almost hear her voice again, proud and hushed behind a door that had long since shut. I didn't sleep. I just sat there in my lab, the glow of monitors casting thin blue shadows across the room. Every tick of the wall clock stretched wider than the last. Somewhere between 3 and 4 a.m., I checked my email again, out of reflex, not hope. And there it was. Subject, we need to talk. It's urgent. From Dr. Lena Hart. I stared at the screen for a full 30 seconds before I clicked. Your device isn't child's play. It's a breakthrough. It could save lives, Elyse. I'm in town tonight. Meet me. Cafe Lumen, 9 p.m. Come alone. I didn't breathe until I read it again. Someone had seen me. Someone who wasn't paid to smile or programmed to dismiss me. Still, I didn't reply. I just whispered, okay. I didn't trust the silence, though. Not after Victor, not after Gideon's grin, not after that folder. But I couldn't ignore it either. At 8:55, I sat inside Cafe Lumen. The windows fogged faintly from the light rain outside, and soft jazz played from unseen speakers. My reflection stared back at me from the glass. Tired eyes, tension pulled tight at my shoulders. Then the bell above the door jingled. Dr. Lena Hart didn't look like I remembered from the conference keynote 3 years ago. She looked more human, a little older, eyes sharper. A leather satchel hung at her side, and her trench coat dripped rain onto the floor. She spotted me instantly. "Elyse," she said, sliding into the booth across from me like we were old friends, not strangers on the edge of conspiracy. "Thanks for coming." Her voice was steady, warm but worn, the kind of tone that's had to fight for its authority. I nodded, unsure what to say. She didn't wait. "Your prototype, it's not just promising. It's 10 years ahead. I've reviewed the patent draft your father filed under Gideon." Her jaw tensed. "It's not his work. It's yours. It's obvious." I didn't know whether to thank her or break. "You're not the first genius a boardroom's tried to erase," she said. I swallowed hard. "Why now?" She leaned in, voice lower. "Because this could save millions, and I've been in your shoes. But worse, I've seen what happens when silence wins." Her words felt like balm and gasoline all at once. Outside, headlights flickered by. For a moment, I let myself want to believe. Then she hesitated. "There's something else," she said. "Someone at Varnell, someone high up, knows what this device can do, and they want it buried." My stomach flipped. She glanced at the window, then pulled out her phone, thumbed open a photo. A man in a dark suit, blurry, watching her. Or me. "He's been trailing me. I think Victor's getting nervous." I stared at the image. The angle felt familiar. "I've seen him," I whispered. Outside my lab, I thought... I didn't finish. She nodded. "You're in deeper than you realize. That prototype? It threatens too many people, especially if you're not controllable." The word stung. Controllable. Like I was some glitch they couldn't patch. Lena opened her satchel and slid a flash drive across the table. "Backup of your original code. I pulled it from an early paper you published at Stanford. Time-stamped. Unquestionable." I stared at it. My hand didn't move. "Why are you helping me?" Her answer came without hesitation. "Because someone helped me once, and I failed her. I'm not doing that again." A silence settled between us, the kind that carries weight. She leaned back. "You still have the prototype?" I nodded. "It's secure. For now," she said, "but you need allies, and fast." As she stood, I noticed her eyes drift past me, toward the window again. "Go out the back," she said quietly. "There's a man across the street with an earpiece. Don't give him a reason to follow you." I left through the kitchen. The alley was wet and narrow, neon signs bleeding color across the puddles. My footsteps echoed like warnings. Halfway down the block, I looked back. No one. But the unease wouldn't leave my spine. When I reached my car, a message buzzed on my phone. From Gideon. "Might want to watch your step. People talk." My grip tightened until my knuckles blanched. Was he warning me or threatening me? I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat and started the engine. As the city slid by in streaks of light and rain, my mind spiraled. Why did Lena say someone helped her once? Someone she failed? Who was that? And why did it sound so personal? Back at the lab, I locked the doors, triple-checked the cameras. Then I took out the flash drive and plugged it in. The screen blinked. My old code danced across the monitor. Untouched. Pure. Mine. I didn't cry, but my throat ached from holding it in. I glanced back at the box from Gideon. The journal, my mother's praise. What did she know? What had she protected? And if she believed in me back then, why had she stayed silent all these years? I didn't have answers, but I had allies now. Maybe. I reached for my notebook to sketch out contingency plans, when another message flashed across my screen. Unknown sender. You're not safe. Watch the windows. I turned slowly toward the glass. A shadow passed, quick, slinking, barely more than a flicker. But it was enough. Enough to know I wasn't alone. Not anymore. The shadow disappeared before I could reach the window. I stood frozen in the dim light of the lab, one hand hovering near the glass, the other clenched tightly around the edge of my desk. My breath slowed, but my mind raced. Watch the windows. I spun around, scanned the monitors. Nothing. Security feed clear, street empty. Just the static hum of silence. But the unease didn't fade. It lingered like a fingerprint on glass, invisible but undeniable. I stayed there most of the night, watching footage, listening for footsteps that never came, locking every latch twice over. Sleep didn't happen. Not really. My body rested on the couch, but my mind walked laps inside a burning house. By morning, I tried to go through the motions, tea instead of coffee, tied my hair tighter than usual, played soft music like it could drown the dread. It didn't. I went to the lab's side door to grab a delivery I'd scheduled. When I opened it, the hallway was empty, except for one thing, a single envelope, slipped under the door, no stamp, no name, just my name on the front, Elyse, in my mother's handwriting. I felt the floor tip beneath me. I didn't open it right away, just stared at it, my fingers trembling slightly as I sat down. The paper was thick, cream-colored, familiar, the kind Mira used to keep in her study for letters she never sent. For a moment, I was 10 again, watching her write notes to donors in cursive, so elegant it felt like a performance. But this wasn't a thank you letter. This was something else. I broke the seal. Inside, a single line written in careful, slanted script. Your gift is your shield. Beware the serpent. That was it. No signature, no date, no explanation. I read it again and again. My throat tightened. My pulse thudded in my ears. The words pulsed like a code I couldn't break. Your gift is your shield. Was she talking about the prototype? My invention? My brain? And the serpent? Was that Victor? Gideon? Someone else entirely? A sound outside the window jolted me, a soft crunch. I rushed to the camera feed. Nothing. Just wind stirring the ivy. Still, I closed the blinds. I set the note on the table beside the flash drive from Lena, the prototype case, and the journal entry from the attic. Each one a piece of a puzzle no one wanted me to finish. I needed answers, and only one person might give them to me. I drove to the estate. The Napa Hills rolled in quiet gold beneath a pale sky, the vines brittle with winter. It should have felt peaceful. It didn't. The house hadn't changed. The same iron gates, same stone lions guarding the entry like they ever protected anyone who actually needed it. Inside, Mira was in the sunroom, pruning orchids like nothing had ever fractured between us. She didn't flinch when I walked in, just looked up with the gentlest surprise. Elyse. Mira. Not Mom. Not yet. Her hands stilled at the pot. It's been a while. Not long enough, I said, then pulled the envelope from my coat pocket and set it on the table. Her fingers trembled when she saw it, so faint she almost hid it. But I saw. I didn't send that, she said softly. But you wrote it. She looked away. I don't remember. You always remember, I said. You taught me that the details matter. The silence between us thickened like fog. I pressed. What does it mean? Your gift is your shield? Who's the serpent? Mira exhaled long and shaky. She set down the pruning shears. You were always more than they knew, than he would ever admit. Victor? I asked. She didn't answer, but her eyes said yes. I leaned in. Did you warn me? Or did someone make you stop? Her gaze dropped. Not everything I did was cowardice, Elyse. Some things were survival. My jaw clenched. And what about mine? Her lips parted, but whatever she meant to say, she swallowed it. I found the journal, I said. The one from the attic. You praised my heartbeat sensor. Her eyes watered. I waited. I gave her the silence she'd always used as a shield, and then quietly she said, "Victor read it. He told me it was dangerous to encourage your distractions, that it would divide the family." "So you stopped," I whispered. Her shoulders slumped. "I thought protecting you meant keeping you close, but maybe I just kept you quiet." I didn't know whether to scream or cry, so I did neither. I just stood. "It's too late for protection, Mira." I left before she could answer. Outside, the air stung cold against my skin, sharp and clean like truth. I sat in my car for 5 whole minutes before turning the key. On the drive back, I couldn't stop repeating the line, "Your gift is your shield." Maybe Mira was right. Maybe the one thing I had that they couldn't steal, not really, was the thing they feared most. My mind, my designs, my will. I got back to the lab just as the sun dipped behind the trees. Shadows spilled long and low across the floor. I stepped in and froze. The drawer where I kept the prototype was ajar. I never left it open. I walked slowly toward it, heart climbing into my throat. Inside, the prototype was still there, but something had been moved. A folded sticky note now sat on top of the case. I picked it up. One word, typed in all caps, "Remember." No signature, no explanation, no prints. I checked the doors. No sign of forced entry. Security footage? Wiped clean for the past hour. Someone had been here. Someone who wanted me to remember. What? The envelope, the note, the journal, the warning. All of it spiraling into something bigger than betrayal, a game I didn't know I'd already been pulled into. The sticky note sat like a dare on top of the prototype. Remember. I kept it. I didn't know why. Maybe because it was the only part of the spiral that didn't try to explain itself. Everything else was loud with questions. My mother's letter, the journal, the surveillance. But that word didn't beg to be understood. It commanded me to wake up. And I did. I spent the next 2 days preparing for the conference. Every slide rehearsed, every diagnostic retested, the prototype calibrated to a hair's breadth of perfection. But a storm swirled inside me, impossible to quiet. The tech world's biggest medical expo was my stage. I'd submitted late, but with Dr. Hart's backing, they made room. It wasn't the main hall, but it was enough. I arrived early before the crowds. The conference center was cavernous and clinical, white walls humming under LED light, the air thick with ambition and caffeine. As I set up, my fingers worked on autopilot. Insert drive, launch test environment, configure wireless diagnostics. But my eyes kept flicking to the room's corners. I hadn't forgotten the shadow, or the silent cameras, or the wiped footage. I hadn't forgotten any of it, and I sure as hell hadn't forgotten Gideon. Half an hour before the talk, I spotted him near the entrance, laughing with 2 investors, wine glass in hand, not a single credential around his neck, like he owned the building. He caught my eye, smiled, then turned and disappeared behind a curtain. My stomach twisted, but I forced myself back to the podium. Focus. Remember who you are. They called my name. I walked up to the mic. The lights dimmed. The first slide clicked into place, and then blackout. All of it. The screen, the projector, my tablet. Dead. I blinked in the darkness, frozen, heart banging against my ribs. Murmurs rose from the crowd like smoke. Technical issue? Was this part of the demo? I tapped frantically at the screen. Nothing. Someone laughed. Not loud, but just enough. And I knew that voice. Gideon. I scanned the crowd, caught a flicker of his smile before he turned away again. The sabotage was surgical, deliberate. The prototype itself blinked once, then shut off. A second later, the conference assistant whispered to me, "Try rebooting your system." I forced a nod and ducked behind the podium. My fingers trembled. I reached into the bag, grabbed the backup drive Lena had given me, inserted it into the port. The screen stuttered. Then it came alive, barely. System errors flashed red across the diagnostics. File corrupted. No. I stared at it, sick realization pouring over me like ice. This wasn't a tech glitch. Someone had tampered with the core files. I was locked out of my own code. My mouth opened, but I couldn't speak. A smattering of polite applause filled the void, the kind that hurts worse than silence. I forced a breath. "I apologize," I said, my voice cracking. "There's been an unexpected disruption." Another voice cut in from the back. "Looks like someone wasn't ready for prime time." I didn't look. I knew it was Gideon. I should have walked off right then, but I stayed because I needed them to see me fall. So when I rose again, no one could pretend it didn't matter. I left the stage, numb, each step heavy, echoing in the hallway like a defeat parade. Outside, the sky had turned slate gray. Fog pressed against the glass like breath from something just waiting to consume me. I sat on a bench near the lobby fountain, clenching my fists until my nails left crescents in my palms. "Breathe," I muttered, "just breathe." And then, Dr. Hart. She rushed over, eyes wide, hair windswept like she'd run from the street. "I saw," she gasped, sitting beside me. "What the hell happened?" I shook my head. "Sabotage. The backup. Your backup. It was corrupted." She froze. "No," she whispered. "That drive was clean." "Well, it's not anymore." Her hands balled into fists. I think he got to it," I said, "before I left the lab." She looked around, paranoid. Her voice dropped to a hiss. "We need to get ahead of this." "Too late," I said. "They already think I'm a fraud." Her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and her face paled. "What is it?" She held it up. A new anonymous message. "You're not the only one they've buried. Meet me alone, 11 p.m., Pier 9. We stared at it. Every instinct screamed trap. But something about the wording, not the only one, itched in my brain. Lena whispered, "If they're telling the truth." "I need to know," I finished for her. She hesitated. "Then I'm going with you." I didn't argue. That night I sat alone in my lab after Lena left. The air was still, but I couldn't stop glancing at the windows. And then I remembered something, barely a whisper of a thought. When I rebooted the prototype earlier, it had blinked once before dying. That meant it had tried to run. Meaning the kill switch wasn't in the hardware, it was in the code. And only someone with intimate access could have done that. Not just someone who hated me, someone who knew me, someone like... The lights flickered. My phone buzzed again. Another message, no sender. "He's watching the water," that was all. I stared at it, the timestamp blinking back at me. 10:37 p.m. I had 23 minutes until I found out whether the truth was waiting for me at Pier 9, or something much darker. Pier 9 smelled like rust, rain, and low tide. The wind off the water sliced through my coat, tugging at my scarf, whipping loose hair across my face. Each footstep on the wet planks echoed louder than it should have, louder than I wanted. Lena walked beside me, silent, her shoulders tense. She hadn't spoken since we left the car. The streetlights blinked weakly overhead, casting us in long shadows. No sign of anyone, just the hum of the bay and the distant groan of ships shifting with the tide. "He's watching the water," I whispered, quoting the message. Lena scanned the pier, or we are. We found him at the very end, leaning against a rusted railing, hood up, one hand buried in the pocket of a rain-slick coat. When he turned, I didn't recognize him, but he knew me. "Elyse," he said, calm and flat, "I wasn't sure you'd come." I hesitated. "You sent the messages?" He nodded. "And the note." Lena stepped forward, her tone sharp. "Who are you?" The man glanced at her, then back to me. "Someone who used to work for your father." My pulse skipped. "In what capacity?" He shrugged. "Call me a cleaner. I handled internal complications, people who knew too much or asked the wrong questions." "And now you're one of them?" His mouth twitched. "Now I'm one of the ghosts." A wave crashed against the rocks below, spraying mist over our shoes. He pulled something from his coat, a small recorder, clicked it on, held it out. "Listen." The audio crackled. Victor's voice filled the space between us. "She'll never stop unless we cut her off entirely. If Lena hesitates, remind her who funds her research, and if Elyse pushes back, burn it. All of it." Lena gasped beside me. Her body went stiff. The man clicked the recorder off. "That was from last week," he said. "He was planning your collapse long before the conference." I swallowed. "And the footage? Of my lab?" He pulled a USB from his pocket and tossed it to me. "Back door installed by IT. Victor's orders." I stared at it. My hands felt numb. "Why are you giving me this?" He didn't answer immediately, then softly. "Because your mother paid me not to." My head snapped up. "What?" "She bribed me to keep surveillance off your wing 2 years ago, said you needed space, that you'd never get it with Victor watching." Lena's eyes met mine, shocked but not surprised. "She tried," I whispered. The man nodded. "More than you know." Another silence. He looked out at the water. "I'm disappearing after this. You won't see me again, but you deserve to know." He turned and vanished down the steps into the shadows. We didn't speak on the drive home. We didn't have to. The truth was louder than any conversation. Victor had orchestrated the entire thing, weaponized my brother, my mentor, even my own lab. And now we had proof. The next morning, I walked into Varnell Tech, head held high, evidence in my bag, hatred in my bloodstream. The boardroom gleamed with glass and arrogance. 12 seats, 11 men, 1 woman, and Victor at the head, hands folded, smile tight. "Elyse," he said as if nothing had happened. "A surprise visit. I'd call it an intervention." A few chuckles, nervous, unsure. I didn't waste time. I played the recording, watched their faces shift, first confusion, then discomfort, then cold calculation. Victor stayed still, unmoved. "This is slander," he said. "Stolen audio. Fabricated." "I have timestamps," I snapped. "Surveillance metadata, lab breach logs, and this," I held up the drive. "Backdoor protocol traced to your executive clearance." Silence. Then a board member, Mr. Halverson, silver hair, tired eyes, leaned forward. "Victor, is this true?" Victor didn't blink. "You're really going to take her word over mine?" "It's not just her word," Lena said from the doorway, stepping inside. "It's mine too, and I've kept quiet long enough." Gasps rippled. Victor's mask cracked for the first time. "You're finished," I told him. His laugh came low and bitter. "You think this is over? I built this company. You walk in here with a flash drive and what? Demand a crown?" I stepped closer, voice steel. "No, I'm not here for a crown. I'm here for a reckoning." He stood. "If you go public with this, you bring down your own name, your own family." I didn't flinch. "Maybe it's time the world saw what that name really means." He leaned in. "You don't have the spine." My jaw clenched. "Watch me." I turned and walked out. The board didn't stop me. Lena followed. Down the hallway, heart pounding, I whispered, "We need to prepare a press release. Full documentation, signed affidavit." She nodded. "It's already in motion." I reached the elevator. Just before the doors closed, I glanced back and saw Gideon watching me, expression unreadable, but in his eyes, something stirred. Not fear, not anger, something colder, something calculating. And then the email hit my inbox. No subject, no text, just an attachment. A patent application, filed under Gideon's name, using my mother's prototype schematic, date stamped 3 days ago, and signed by Dr. Lena Hart. I stared at the patent file until the words blurred. Gideon's name, my design, and Lena's signature, dated 3 days ago, before the sabotage, before the boardroom showdown, before she swore she had my back. The air in my lungs turned metallic. Betrayal has a taste. It's copper and salt and every lie you tried to call a kindness. I closed the laptop slowly, careful not to shatter it against the wall. My hands moved on instinct. Coat, keys, drive in my pocket. No calls, no texts. Just the cold clarity of movement when everything else is noise. I drove through the city like the roads owed me something. Streetlights pulsed red and gold in the rain. By the time I reached Lena's office, I wasn't shaking anymore. I was hollow. The receptionist said she was in a meeting. I didn't ask permission. I walked past the desk, pushed open the door, and found Lena sitting alone, laptop open, brows furrowed. She looked up and froze. "Elyse?" I tossed the patent folder onto her desk. It slid to a stop inches from her hand. Her face paled. "Where did you get that?" "You tell me." She opened it, read a single line. Her lips parted, but no words came. "You signed off on this," I said. "Gideon's name, my prototype, and you—" "I didn't," she whispered. "I swear to you, I didn't sign this." The lie trembled in her voice. Or maybe it was the truth, crushed under something uglier. "Then how the hell is your name on it?" She shut the folder, pushed it away like it stung. "Victor's legal team. They've forged before, contracts, settlements. If he thought it would pressure me—" "Pressure you to do what?" I snapped. "Destroy my work? Sell me out? Stand beside me while planting knives in my back?" Lena stood. Her voice rose, not in defense, but pain. You think this is easy for me? You think I haven't already lost everything once? She grabbed a photo from her bookshelf, framed, dusty, a younger Lena, mid-30s, beside a woman with soft eyes and a lab coat. Handwritten on the bottom, Hart and Fung, 2008 conference. She was my partner, Lena said. Brilliant, revolutionary. We built a diagnostic scanner 5 years before anyone else, but the hospital board thought I was the marketable one. She touched the frame gently. They took her off the patents, rewrote the narrative, and I let them, because I thought, at least the work would survive. I softened, just slightly. What happened to her? She walked away, left medicine, changed her name. I never saw her again. The photo caught the window's light, reflecting the rain. So when I saw what they were doing to you, she said, I couldn't let it happen again. You mean until you did? Her shoulders sagged. I was threatened, cornered. Victor found out about the drive, the meeting on the pier. He said if I didn't cooperate, he'd dissolve every grant backing my research. I stared at her. It wasn't just about the prototype, was it? I asked. He wanted to erase me completely. Lena nodded slowly. He knew you were the threat. Not Gideon. Not me. You. I swallowed the ache in my throat. Why didn't you warn me? Her voice cracked. Because I was afraid I was too late. A long silence passed between us. Then Lena stepped to her filing cabinet, unlocked the bottom drawer, and pulled out a small object wrapped in cloth. She set it on the desk. Your mother gave me this the day you turned 16. I unwrapped it slowly. A memory chip, old, faded label, my name handwritten on it. I told her I'd keep it safe. I thought she was being sentimental, Lena said. But after what's happened, I think she knew Victor would bury your early work, and she wanted it to survive. My chest tightened. I slid the chip into my pocket. I need to see what's on it. Lena looked me in the eye. I want to help, but I won't ask for your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. You're right, I said quietly. You don't. But I didn't walk away. Because whatever was on that chip, it started with her, and with my mother. Later that night, I loaded the memory chip onto my secure server at the lab, every light off, just the glow of the monitor. A file popped up, titled EV Core Mira Varnell Backup. I clicked play, footage rolled, a home video, grainy, my mother younger, smiling in the background, me at 10 years old, showing off a crude sketch of the heartbeat sensor. Her voice came through, soft and proud. She built it from scraps. I think she's going to change the world. Clip cut. Next file, a scan of a patent draft, dated 5 years before I'd ever submitted my design, signed by Mira Varnell, filed under Elyse Varnell, child inventor, parent acting as legal guardian. My breath caught. My prototype hadn't started in the last decade. It began in that basement, and my mother had tried to protect it all along, even when she stayed silent, even when I thought she didn't believe in me. Then, one final image, a photo. Victor, young, smiling beside a man I'd never seen before. The man from the chip looked nothing like family, but the date on the image predated Gideon's birth. And the name tag said Dr. Leon Fung. I froze. Fung. As in Hart and Fang? The partner Lena lost? What was Victor doing with him? What was my mother doing hiding this? The questions collided like thunder inside my head. But the one that rose loudest? Was Gideon even Victor's son? I couldn't sleep, not after that photo. Victor and Dr. Leon Fung, shoulder to shoulder, younger, smug, a decade before I ever picked up a soldering iron, a decade before Mira changed. And yet, their names had never appeared in the same breath. Why? And what did it have to do with Gideon? I ran facial scans, cross-checked biotech patents, but every search stopped cold. Fung vanished in 2010. No death record, no last known address, no official fallout, just silence. Like someone had scrubbed his existence clean. And that kind of silence usually meant one thing. Someone powerful had made it happen. I stared at the photo, the chip, the old files. Questions coiled tighter and tighter in my chest. What if Mira had known something, too big to say out loud? What if the man I'd spent my whole life calling my brother wasn't even blood? I didn't want to believe it. But my gut had stopped lying for people a long time ago. That morning, I barely noticed the sky was gray. A wet fog blanketed the city, turning traffic lights into glowing ghosts. Everything felt slower, quieter, like the world was holding its breath. I was halfway through my third cup of coffee at the lab when I spotted him, a man, standing across the street, still, hood up, hands in his coat, camera hanging at his side. At first I thought I was imagining it, a trick of paranoia. Then he raised the camera, snapped a photo. I froze. My breath hitched in my throat. He turned and walked away, vanishing around the corner. I ran to the monitors, scanned the feeds, got him on 3 angles. Same guy I'd seen before, at Cafe Lumen, at the conference. Always there, never moving, watching. The same hood, the same shadow. I pulled the footage, enhanced the badge on his belt. Security firm, fake name. But the logo, it wasn't Varnell Tech's. It belonged to a private surveillance group, one I recognized, because Victor used to contract them, but not lately, because they were now owned by Gideon. My stomach twisted. Victor had sent spies, sure, but now, so had Gideon? What the hell was he watching for? I forwarded the footage to Lena and encrypted the drives, just in case. Then I drove to the address registered to the firm's license plate, a parking structure downtown, top level, empty except for one black SUV. I waited. At 2:17 p.m. he returned. I stepped out of the car just as he unlocked the vehicle. He turned. I saw his face for the first time, late 40s, scar on his cheek, eyes dark and unreadable. "You've been following me," I said. He didn't flinch. "Miss Varnell." I nodded toward his badge. "You work for Gideon." His lips twitched. "Not anymore." I blinked. "Then why the surveillance?" "Insurance," he said simply, "for both of us." He handed me a flash drive. No explanation. Then he got in the SUV and drove away. That night, I plugged the drive into my isolated server. Firewalled, air-gapped, just in case. Files loaded, labeled only by date. Video logs, audio transcripts. Most recent time-stamped, yesterday. I clicked play. And there they were, Gideon, in his office, on the phone, his voice low, calculated. "No, Victor's too erratic now. We stick to the plan. Let him take the fall. By the time the story breaks, I'll have full control. Elyse won't know what hit her." My hands went cold. Next file, Gideon again. This time, speaking to Lena. "She's unpredictable. You think she'll forgive you? We both know what you signed. So unless you want your funding torched, you'll sit pretty and let me run the finale." Her silence said everything. I paused the video. The room felt smaller, the air thinner. So this was it. Gideon was playing all sides, letting Victor fall apart publicly while he quietly positioned himself as the savior. And Lena, she'd been forced to play along. Not a partner, a pawn, just like I had been. I thought I'd lost everything when Victor humiliated me. But Gideon? He'd waited for the ashes, and then salted the earth. I stared at the final file, dated 2 weeks ago. I almost didn't click. But curiosity's cruel like that. A video, no sound, just Gideon in the lab, alone, and next to him, the prototype, mine. He wasn't just stealing it, he was learning it, rebuilding it, line by line, and in the background, pinned to the wall, a photo, Mira and Victor, and a baby, not Gideon, someone else, someone I didn't recognize. The camera lingered long enough for me to zoom in later, but even blurry, I knew one thing. That wasn't Gideon in the picture, and Mira had been crying. I shut the file. My fingers hovered above the keyboard. Then I typed a single message and sent it to Lena. "We need to talk. Tonight. No lies, no back doors. Bring everything." And then I shut off the lights. Behind me, on the monitor, the still frame of Gideon in my lab flickered once, then went dark. The night of the gala arrived like a reckoning wrapped in velvet. Outside, the city glittered under a cold, high sky. The glass dome of the Westfall atrium sparkled like a crown of light above 1,000 whispered lies. Inside, gold trim caught the chandeliers like fire, and string instruments swirled through the air like everything was fine. Everything was not fine. Not with the files burning holes in my purse, not with my mother's hidden past unraveling in fragments, and not with Gideon standing 30 feet away, drink in hand, surrounded by sycophants in tuxedos pretending they hadn't just tried to erase me from existence. I stepped through the entrance, heels clicking sharp on marble, chin lifted higher than my pulse. This time, no one whispered, "Why is she here?" This time, people watched. Gideon turned when he felt the shift in the room. His gaze locked with mine, and for the first time, he looked afraid. He didn't show it in his body, not quite, but his jaw twitched. His glass tilted just slightly, and I smiled. Lena trailed beside me, tight-lipped in navy silk. She hadn't said much since I sent the message, but she hadn't backed out either. "You're sure about this?" she asked under her breath. "No," I replied, "but I'm done waiting for permission." We moved through the crowd as if the air parted for us, or recoiled. Near the center of the ballroom stood Victor, flanked by board members like ceremonial guards. His smile stretched thin as I approached. "Elyse," he said, voice oiled with condescension. "Another surprise appearance?" "No," I said, steady. "This one's on the schedule." A hush fell, subtle but undeniable. I glanced at the host, the CEO of biotech, who was watching carefully. He nodded. I stepped up to the mic. "My name is Elyse Varnell," I said. "I'm a biomedical engineer, and I'm here to tell the truth." A flicker of movement. Gideon shifted. Victor crossed his arms. I continued. "A few months ago, my cancer detection prototype was sabotaged, stolen, and filed under someone else's name. My family's company tried to erase my work, my identity, my voice. I pulled the drive from my purse, held it like a match ready to strike. But some things won't stay buried. I plugged it into the display screen behind me. Slides appeared, blueprints, time-stamped footage, data logs, and then a recording. Gideon's voice. "Victor's too erratic now. Let him take the fall. By the time the story breaks, I'll have full control." A gasp. One woman covered her mouth. I turned toward Gideon, who was already pushing forward. "This is a setup," he barked. "You edited that audio." "No," I said calmly. "You just got caught." Another clip played. Victor's voice, cold, calculated. "If Elyse pushes back, burn it. All of it." Gasps turned to murmurs. Phones lit up. People recorded. Victor stepped forward, face hard. "Enough. You think this changes anything?" I looked him in the eye. "It changes everything." He opened his mouth. But then the Biotrelix CEO raised a hand. "Let her finish." The room stilled again. I drew in a breath, hands trembling slightly. "I used to think I needed this family to survive," I said, "that I needed their approval to matter, but I don't." My voice cracked, not from fear, but force. Because truth doesn't need permission. The crowd erupted. Some clapped, some murmured, and some, Victor, Gideon, stayed absolutely still. The CEO stepped up beside me, took the mic. "We'll be reviewing all recent patent filings immediately," he said, "but I think we can agree. Inventor Elyse deserves a closer look." Applause surged louder. Gideon turned and walked out. Victor stayed frozen. I looked at him one last time. He didn't say a word, because there wasn't one left to say. I left the stage. Lena caught up to me in the hallway. "You did it." "Not yet," I said, "but we're close." Then I noticed the reporter. Young, determined. Press badge tilted on her chest. She stepped forward, recorder already running. "Elyse," she said, "one question, off the record." I nodded. "There's a rumor," she said carefully, "that Gideon Varnell may not be Victor's biological son." My stomach dropped. She didn't stop. "Is there any truth to that?" My mouth opened, closed. Then Lena touched my shoulder. "We found something," she said softly, "on the photo from the memory chip." "What is it?" She hesitated. The name on the baby's bracelet wasn't Gideon's. The reporter's eyes widened. I turned away before I answered, because whatever the truth was, it was bigger than me now, and it was coming for all of us. I didn't sleep after the gala. The applause, the stares, the revelation, none of it settled. Not with the reporter's question still echoing in my head. Is there any truth to that? Truth had become slippery. Even when you thought you had it nailed to the wall, it wriggled free, left behind just enough to make you wonder what else you didn't know. By morning, the headlines had exploded. Varnell Harris exposes family sabotage at Gala. Patents, power, and blood. The fall of a dynasty? Who really built the cancer cure? I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt raw, like someone had peeled back the skin but left the wound wide open. At noon, the CEO of Biotrelix called me in. Glass walls, executive calm, silence thick as varnish. He slid a folder across the table. "Elyse," he said, We found something bigger. Inside the folder, patent filings, dozens, some with Gideon's name, some with Victor's, all dated over the last 3 years, and all matching my prototypes, designs I'd never released, experiments I never even finished, because I hadn't filed any of them. They had. Victor had built a vault of stolen futures, each patent signed, sealed, and filed just before I got close, and now Biotrelix had proof. The CEO's voice was quiet. He didn't just steal your device. He's been watching your lab since the beginning. I flipped to the last page. There it was. My handwriting, scanned, forged. An approval form bearing my name. I barely breathed. How? We believe someone on the inside was feeding them data before the surveillance breach. The room spun. That meant years. Years of work siphoned off. Years of breakthroughs buried beneath Victor's name. I clenched my fists. No more, I said. Elyse, he added gently, you need to see this. He opened his laptop, played a clip. Victor, in his office, speaking into a secure line. We'll keep Gideon as the face, easier to control, but the real asset is her, as long as she doesn't know it. My stomach turned. He hadn't just tried to erase me. He'd planned to use me, feed off my intellect, my silence, my hunger for approval, the illusion of power while I worked in the shadows. And Gideon? He'd played along. Or worse, he'd known all along. I want a full audit, I said. Everything they've touched, every patent they filed under me. We're already on it, the CEO said, but there's more. He handed me a second folder. Inside, a notarized copy of Mira's will. I blinked. I didn't know she filed it last week, he said, privately, with a posthumous clause. I stared at the paper, heart thudding. It listed me as the beneficiary of her intellectual property holdings, but one line stood out. To Elyse, I leave the lab and all its contents, including the prototype I built for her before she could build it herself. I choked on air. She'd built it? No, not entirely, but she'd laid the foundation. Long before I thought I was creating something new, I'd been following a blueprint Mira left in silence, and Victor knew. Of course he knew. He wasn't just burying my legacy. He was burying hers too. My jaw tightened. He buried both of us. The CEO nodded. But now it's rising. I left the building with wind in my lungs and thunder in my bloodstream. Outside, the crowd buzzed. Cameras, questions, eyes. I said nothing. Not yet. At home, I opened the memory chip again, pulled up the photo, zoomed in. The infant bracelet read, Isaac L. Fung, not Gideon. I ran the name. It didn't exist in any Varnell records, but 2 hours later, Lena texted me. Check the joint business filings. Year 1991. Project Helix 1. I did. And there it was, Dr. Leon Fung and Victor Varnell, co-patentees on an early genetic sequencing platform. But the filings stopped abruptly. That same year, Mira disappeared from public events for 6 months. No press, no speeches, a private birth, a sealed record. Isaac L. Fung. And then Gideon. The timelines didn't match. The biology didn't lie. Gideon wasn't Victor's son. He wasn't even a Varnell, which meant Victor had stolen a child's identity, raised him like an heir, used him as a shield, and Mira had kept the secret, maybe to protect Isaac, or maybe to protect me. I stared at the screen, heart hammering. A knock at the door. I opened it to find Victor, alone, no guards, no press, just a man unraveling. He stepped inside without asking. I suppose you know everything, he said quietly. I didn't answer. He looked older than I'd ever seen him, or maybe just exposed. You think it was easy? He said. Raising a child that wasn't mine, pretending, watching Mira drift further every year. I crossed my arms. You mean stealing someone's life and feeding on mine? He nodded slowly. I made choices, ruthless ones, necessary ones. You don't build an empire by waiting for permission. I held up the patent folder. You built a graveyard. He didn't deny it. Then, a pause. He reached into his coat, pulled out a flash drive, set it on the table. What's this? I asked. The truth, he said, and my last move. And with that, he walked out. I stared at the drive for a long time. Then I picked it up and pressed play. I pressed play. Victor's voice filled the room. Not smug, not calculated, not sharp like a scalpel, just tired. If you're hearing this, I'm done pretending." He sounded hollow, like someone who had finally run out of excuses. "There's a vault in the lower archives, under my name, but Mira built it. She saved every version of your designs, Elyse. Every revision, every note. She filed them before I could touch them, before Gideon even learned to type." My hands started to shake. I tried to bury her, then I tried to become her. I failed at both. The video panned slightly, revealed a locked case with Mira's initials etched into the corner. Victor stepped into the frame, set a key beside it. "You can burn this, or open it. Either way, I don't own it anymore." The screen went black, and I realized this wasn't just a confession, it was a surrender. He knew he'd lost. And Mira had been protecting my legacy from the start. I didn't cry. There wasn't time, because the redemption wasn't his. It had to be mine. Live. The word pulsed across the screen in red as the camera light blinked to green. The auditorium filled with reporters, medics, tech executives, engineers, and skeptics. They all stared up at the stage like they'd come to witness either a miracle or a collapse. Lena stood behind me, hand steady on my shoulder. "You don't have to prove anything anymore," she whispered. I nodded, and walked into the spotlight anyway. The hum of silence pressed against my ears as I stepped up to the podium. 6 months ago, I began, I was told my invention was worthless, that I was reckless, delusional, dangerous. I held up the prototype, now smaller, refined, wrapped in a pale silver band. But today, I'll let it speak for itself. I turned toward the volunteer, a middle-aged woman who'd agreed to the trial after losing her sister to late-stage pancreatic cancer. Her eyes were clear. Her voice had trembled backstage, but now she stood tall beside me. I slipped the device over her wrist. It scanned. The interface lit up in a warm glow. I waited. And then, a single tone. Steady. Quiet. The results appeared. "Early stage detection markers present," the monitor read. "Refer for biopsy." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Then, applause, bursting, rolling. The woman touched her chest, eyes glassy. "Thank you," she whispered. I stepped back, pulse hammering. Biotrelix's CEO stood, took the mic. "We've seen the data, and we've seen the sabotage. Elyse Varnell didn't just survive it, she beat it." The crowd rose, reporters stood, but I barely heard it, because in the front row, Mira, tears in her eyes, a necklace in her hands. She mouthed something. "Your mother would be proud." I walked down to her, trembling. She held out the necklace, a silver locket. I recognized it. She'd worn it every day for 2 decades. I opened it. Inside, a tiny key, same shape as the one Victor left in the video. I looked at her. She nodded. "I wanted you to have it when you were ready," she said. "When I was ready?" My voice caught. "Mom, I've been clawing for scraps." "I know," she said softly, and I watched it, and I hated myself for letting it happen. "But that lab, that key, it's yours now. You don't need our name. You already have your own." I closed the locket around the key, and everything inside me settled, not perfectly, not clean, but solid. Later, as the crowd thinned and the spotlight cooled, I stood in the hallway near the back exit, alone. Footsteps echoed. Gideon. He stopped a few feet from me, his face unreadable. "I assume you got the files," he said. I didn't respond. "Doesn't matter," he added. "The company's bleeding. Victor's a ghost. You won the war." "Did I?" I asked. He paused. "You ruined everything." I stepped forward, voice low. "No, you did, when you decided I was useful until I wasn't." A flash of something behind his eyes. Not regret, not rage. Recognition. "I never hated you," he said. "You never knew me." He smiled, faint, bitter. "You should check the foundations of that lab before you move in." I blinked. "What?" He leaned close. "There are secrets even Mira didn't find." And then he left, vanished into the hallway like smoke. I stood there, frozen. The locket felt heavier in my hand. What secrets? What foundations? Was it just a final game? Or was there one more truth buried beneath everything I'd reclaimed? I looked down at the key and knew exactly where I was going next. The key was cold in my hand, not just metal, memory, weight, choice. I stood before the vault door in the basement archives, heart pounding like a second heartbeat in my throat. No cameras, no press, just the concrete hum of buried truth. It clicked open. Inside, blueprints, photos, letters, a hard drive, labeled in Mira's handwriting, and something else, a journal, bound in soft leather, my name etched on the inside cover, Elyse. It wasn't just data, it was a confession, a timeline, a map of everything they did to erase me. Victor's manipulation, Gideon's interference, even Mira's silence, strategic, calculated, but not out of malice, out of survival. She had documented it all, in detail, and then waited for me to come find it. Page after page, I saw the lies unravel, saw how Victor took my work and scrubbed it of my name, how Gideon blocked funding, how Mira fed information to journalists, to regulators, to biotech watchdogs, always just enough to slow their momentum without implicating herself. She hadn't just watched me fall, she had been fighting beside me in shadows, and now it was my turn to step into the light. 3 weeks later, the courtroom was cold. The civil fraud suit wasn't criminal, not yet, but it was public. Every seat taken, every word transcribed. Victor sat at the defense table, hollow-cheeked and quieter than I'd ever seen him. Across from him, my attorney laid out the evidence: patent filings, internal emails, lab footage, and finally, Mira's journal. My chest tightened as the judge skimmed it, then nodded, and motioned for me. I stood, took the stand. My voice didn't shake. Everything I built was stolen, but I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to reclaim what's mine. Victor didn't even raise his eyes, but Gideon did. His smirk was gone. Later, outside the courthouse, a reporter shoved a mic toward me. "Will you press criminal charges next?" I looked at the sky, summer blue, peaceful, and said, "I don't need a prison to feel free." That night, I returned to the lab, the real one, the one Mira left me. Underground, undisturbed, mine. I opened the hard drive. It held prototypes, test results, a letter addressed to me. "Elyse, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't protect you in person. But I never stopped believing you'd outlive them, outthink them, outlast them, build something better. Mira." The next morning, I filed the repatents under my name, founded a new company, rehired the techs they'd blacklisted, brought in Lena as my co-lead. We called it Resonance. Not because we wanted to echo the past, but because we'd struck a new chord. At the launch gala, Mira arrived late. She wore white, unapologetic. We didn't hug. We didn't need to. She handed me the locket again, now with her initials added beside mine. "You kept it," I said. "I always planned to return it," she replied. We stood in silence, watching the new diagnostic system run its first full live scan. No glitches, no sabotage, just truth. Later, I found Victor's name in the news, disbarred, bankrupt, alone. I felt nothing, no triumph, no regret, just stillness, clean air after a storm. Gideon tried to launch his own device under a fake name. The courts crushed it in weeks. I never spoke to either of them again. I didn't need to, because this was never about punishing them. It was about remembering who I was, before they rewrote my story, and becoming someone stronger, not despite the betrayal, but because of it. If you're still watching, thank you. Not just for making it to the end, but for bearing witness to a story that could have been buried. If you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or erased, I hope you walk away knowing this. You don't have to burn bridges to build something new. You just have to stop waiting for permission. Subscribe, like, comment, and share if this story moved you. And if you want more true-to-life tales of justice, survival, and second chances, see you in the next one.